Okay, so I want to tell you a little story from my youth. So many of you are familiar with this Sam Young. I want to tell you about my dad, Sam Young. He's a great dad. While I was in high school, I don't know, 9th grade maybe, we had a wrestling class, and I was a good student, so I had good grades. I got my first D ever in gym. I got my D. And what had happened, there was a student teacher, or I think it was a student teacher, so he was doing his apprenticeship or whatever you call it. And so we did the wrestling, we had a wrestle off, there was a wrestling test, written test scheduled, and I'm not super athletic, but there was a heavyweight and lightweight, the divisions wrestling. Well, I won the lightweight, and then they were going to have a wrestle off between the heavyweight and the lightweight. So we're going to have a wrestle off. I wasn't worried about it. The guy was my friend, that was the heavyweight guy. But we didn't know when this was going to happen. We were going to have a written test. We didn't know when it was going to happen. So I was involved in the, what do they call the dances? The really high dance, the prom. I was involved with the prom, planning the prom. We had invitations, and so I was supposed to go down and pick up the invitations with the advisor. So he asked me, pick whatever time you want, whatever class you want to miss. Well, I picked gym, right? Gym, I'm not going to miss too much in gym. Well, it turned out I missed the wrestle off and I missed the written test. So I came back the next day. That was the last day of the student teacher. I didn't know that was his last day either. I liked the guy. Well, now he's gone, and he left the grades. First of all, when I didn't show up, I liked the guy, but he said something a little odd. He kind of intimated to the class that I was a coward for not showing up to wrestle the heavyweight. And maybe no, I wasn't. Maybe in other things I am. But he left with the regular coaches my grade, which was a D, because I didn't do the wrestle off and I didn't do the class. Well, I was not really worried about that. I'm not terribly concerned about a D mixed in with all the other stuff. But I brought it home, I explained it to my dad, and he was not so nonchalant as me. He looked at the D. 3 weeks later, I was called to the principal's office. There was my dad and my mom sitting with the assistant principal and the coach that was in charge of this student teacher that had given me a D. So I'm a kid, I feel nervous about this, intimidated by this, and they start to talk. My dad starts to quiz him why he got a D. The coach said, well, I don't know the details. All we have from the student teacher is the letter D. We don't know why he gave the letter D. Well, my dad said, that's stupid not to know what constituted that grade. The coach, my dad is a little guy like me, okay? The coach, big muscles, okay? This was a big guy. The coach stood up and said, Mr. Young, take off your glasses and we'll settle this in a parking lot. I'm sitting there. My dad stands up, pulls off his glasses and says, let's go. I got goosebumps going up my legs about that interaction. Fortunately, the principal pushed himself between the two of them, told the coach to get back to his room, and then he calmed down. Now, guess what grade I ended up getting? They changed it to an A. Because my dad, okay? And I think I should have got that A anyway. But my takeaway from that was my father. He stood up to a man with those muscles. He was willing to go settle this out in the parking lot. So I think I got a little from the example of my own father about looking out for kids. My kids, I wish I'd looked out for them better when they were having these interviews. But I've got some of my dad in me. I'm standing up. If I have to go out in the parking lot, figuratively, we are in the parking lot today, working to settle this egregious practice that we have. Okay, so there's my little story.
Yes! Woo!
So every day, now see, the fight didn't occur. The principal stood up and settled the thing. I'm hoping somebody will stand up and settle this thing once and for all for the children's safety.
Yes.
Okay.
Woo!
So for the next while, it may be 2 weeks, it may be 3 weeks. If my mom's not in earshot.
Yeah, not 3 weeks.
So what I did just right here, if somebody would like to give a short little speech, a short little thought, feel free to. I've got plenty other ones to do. Now, geez, it wasn't long enough. This is supposed to go to 7 o'clock. Okay, so maybe we'll start at 10:02. Here's the next thing I want to do today. So this is our daily ritual, a little talk, and then changing the day. So what we're doing here, what on this board, oh, I got to get some stuff. I was going to ask somebody to do this, not draw it all nicely, but I forgot to do that. Maybe we can do that tomorrow. Okay, this is not a countdown, but we are counting up, and we don't want to count up very far, not for my sake. They're actually, by the way, here's something interesting. 4 people have now stepped up and said they are going on a fast. One of them is right here, McKenna Denson, has said she is going on a fast.
Woo! Go McKenna!
And that's pretty brazen when you don't have the 30 days of preparation that I had, okay? So there are 4 of us that are now fasting for our children.
Who are the other 2?
Well, I would have to go back and pull it. Yeah, I'll be publishing that tonight.
Okay, thank you.
I hope. Or I'll send it to Tad, and I'm going to ask Tad to publish it for us.
Yeah.
Every day that we're fasting, every day of our hunger strike, that is one more day that children are being taken behind closed doors. Children are being shamed behind closed doors. Children are being groomed for pedophiles that are out there in the world and in our church. So since I've got a few minutes, I just found out last week that a first counselor in the bishopric in a ward in my city was arrested 8 months ago for molesting children, for sexually abusing children. Now he'd groom them, sexually abuse them, and film the children, and then sell the videos on the internet. Now he's been arrested. He's going to go to jail for a long time. But these are some of the children. They don't know how many children. They're still working on that. But some of the children, I met the mother, 4 kids. I mean, this is a horrendous thing that's happened. Do we have pedophiles in our church? We do. Just like any other church, we have pedophiles. But we don't want to be grooming them for that first counselor that is eventually going to get caught. Okay, I think I lost my place here. So this is day 2. We're about to complete day 2, the 4 of us on this hunger strike. But what that means is we've had 2 more days of children being groomed, children being shamed, and only in our church. If we're counting in the Episcopalian church or the Catholic church or the Baptist church, it would be 0 day after day. But in our church, this is day 2 of this continuing to go on. And by the way, I'd like somebody else to do this going forward, to do the racing and doing a nice letter. So we are now in day 3 of our hunger strike, and spotlight, asking people to put a spotlight on what we're doing to our children behind closed doors. It's also day 3 since we began this of our children, for all intents and purposes, being sacrificed to a policy that has to change. Okay, so that's our little ritual that we'll be doing daily.
Yes.
Okay, it's 6:57. We're expecting Elder Suarez to arrive by 7. I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. So, by the way, somebody made a really good suggestion, and I'll be doing this going forward. By the way, I do jump around a lot. I shouldn't do that. That's me. So the church released a PR statement about what we're doing here. And part of that statement is that Sam has met with a bishop, stake president, and a general authority to discuss his concerns. I really haven't met with the general authority, but has met with those 3 levels, and so there's no real need to meet with Sam again. Is that right? Basically, okay. So what we're doing here, I'm not calling for an apostle to come meet with me. I'm calling for the apostles to come meet with us, with those that have concerns for their children, for those who are harmed and are still dealing with that trauma.
Yep.
I'm asking him to come talk to people, real people, that he can, what can an apostle do? What kind of healing could happen if an apostle was here and said, I'm sorry that happened to you? If an apostle came to Melody and said, what happened to you is wrong, that would be huge in helping that healing.
Yep.
So I appreciate the news statement that they don't need to meet with me. Well, fine. Now I understand that. But I'm not going for meeting with them. I'm going for me. I'm going for meeting with you. Okay.
Yeah, stay hydrated.
In 2 minutes, we're going for a temple side chat.
Why would they say you met with the general authority if you didn't meet with the general authority?
Well, I did talk to the general authority for about an hour and a half on Friday, on the phone.
Is that what they're calling your meeting with the general authority?
I don't know. I would be interested in knowing that, but it's kind of moot because I am willing to accept that nobody will meet with me. And it's interesting that the general authority I did talk to personally instructed me, don't tell what we talked about. I don't want to see it appear anywhere, and don't use my name. So I can't tell you his name. I don't know why we are so averse to being open. But, and this, I would say there's been 4 or 5 communications with the church where they specifically said, don't tell anybody about our conversation.
No transparency.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons that I decided, and by the way, for a number of months, I was spied on in social media on secret groups, and all my comments, and well, I don't know if all of them were, but maybe just the ones that didn't sound good, were copied, pasted, and sent to my stake president. He then sent them to my bishop. Once I found out that happened, I said, okay, I'm done being behind closed doors myself. I am going to publish everything. I go meet the stake president. I'm not going to record the thing, but I am going, unless he wants me to, but I am going to write it out so that I felt very violent when somebody did that to me. And so the stake president, bishop, knows that I'm going to write something. Except on one occasion, the stake president, the bishop, many months ago, wanted to find out what he was doing in our ward as far as the interview practices. And so I met with him, and he's a super good guy, so is my stake president. But I met with him and told him I'd like to find out what we were doing in our ward in these interviews. And he started out with this: Sam, I will tell you, but I don't want you to talk about it outside of my office. I'm looking at, oh hell, how in the world can I be sworn to silence? And I accepted that. I said, yes, I want to know. But I can't tell you what happens in our ward because the bishop told me not to tell you. That should never be a private thing. But he's not the only one. I've had several others that have said don't tell anybody, including the general authority yesterday, which also is a great guy. But I can't tell you who it is.
Isn't that what we're trying to prevent?
Yes. Okay, so it's just our culture. Our culture needs to change in so many ways. But actually, I'm not concerned about those things. I'm concerned about the kids. That's where we've got to change it. Okay, 7:02. We're going to go ahead and start our temple side chat with an apostle. It looks like today we're not going to have an apostle. And the next time I invite, I am going to quote the church's release that there's no need to talk to me. I got that. I'm saying there's need to talk to those that need healing, that were harmed in the church that they run. So here's the way this is going to work. Anybody, we're going for an hour. Anybody who would like to ask a question, and this relates to our interview process. If you want to ask a question, make a statement, express your concerns, tell your story of damage, anything you want to say, as if an apostle was here. If you ask a question, I am not an apostle. There's no way I can stand in for Elder Suarez, but I'll answer it the best I can. Okay, so I'm just going to ask, is there anybody here that would like to say anything, ask a question? Tad, light up the... Yes?
I'll ask a question.
So who should I call you?
Joanna.
Joanna, okay. Just
or snake bites, whatever makes you feel better.
Snake bites?
Yeah, snake bites. No, snake bites.
Snake bites, okay.
How do you feel about, especially when children come forward about abuse, the issue of the repentance process that is often put on these children, that they are responsible in some way, like in General Conference when they talked about how children or people who are abused are somewhat responsible for what happened to them, and they're also told they have to repent. They're responsible for it.
So that is a real good illustration of our bishops not being trained counselors. They don't know how to deal. I was a bishop. I didn't know how to deal with sexual abuse. No sexual abuse cases came to me. There was a case that involved sexual abuse, and today I look back and think, the guy went to prison for 19 years, a few years later. I wish I'd known what I was doing when he came to me. Okay, but so the sexual abuse victims,
yes,
we want to have a safe place. A safe place is not one-on-one with a bishop that doesn't know what he's doing.
Right.
He's a good man, but he does not know what he's doing. So we need to have, if sexual abuse comes up, we need to have a trained counselor right there, and it needs to go to the police as soon as they realize this is
report it as a crime.
But no one-on-one. Let's get somebody that's professional involved very quickly.
I like that answer.
Oh.
I do.
Oh wait, I was answering as Elder Suarez. I forgot about that. Okay, that's the way I hope Elder Suarez would answer the question.
I think that's how we would all hope you would answer the question.
Okay.
I have a question.
McKenna.
Well, and I have a comment. Can you talk a little louder? Because tomorrow I think we need to get you a microphone. But I do.
Let's
I
get you
have
a
a
megaphone.
question about.
That's a great question, and let me respond back to McKenna's question. I love that. That validates when I forget questions all the time.
Is that a brain freeze?
I never forget questions.
Old-timers?
Okay, we'll come back to you when you got it.
Thank you.
Somebody else want to ask? Did you want to ask a question? No.
Oh,
Make a statement?
I remember.
Okay.
Sorry.
Took her a minute.
What is the 1-800 number that bishops are required or requested to call if there's an abuse kind of referred to the bishop? So I come to you as a bishop and I say my husband's beating me, or I say I've been sexually abused. So what is that number that they call and where does it go and how does it work?
Well, so that we would have to have Elder Suarez here to answer that question. I have no idea today what it is. And I know I've heard a lot of criticism about that number and it probably needs to go to a whole different place. But that's not our issue. Our issue is to protect our children. But I might as well make one comment about it as a former bishop. I went through very little training about sexual stuff. But one day, I only remember one instance, and there were 3 parts to it. One, the counselor, and this is from somebody from LDS Social Services, she said, when somebody is confessing a sin, do not go like this. I thought that was pretty good advice. I thought it was kind of funny the way she did it, but I remember that. And because many times I've done that in my head. And so that was one part of it. The second part was you have an 800 number. I think it was early on in the years they were introducing it. But the 800 number, I think they said it did go to a lawyer at that time. So this was in 1991 to 1996, somewhere there. Well, let me tell you, as a bishop, that gave me a whole bunch of comfort. I'm not thinking you should go to a counselor. I'm thinking, oh great, I have no idea what to do with sexual abuse, and so I can call somebody that will walk me through whatever. So I kind of liked that I had a number. I never had to use it. Now here's the third piece of training that I thought was amazing, or interesting. The counselor wanted to kind of get us to feel the discomfort when somebody is confessing a sexual sin, or talking about sex. And so she said this. I was there, we were asked to come with our Relief Society president, who was a really good friend of mine, had been for years. She was about 30 years older than me though. But anyway, so she said, sit across from the Relief Society president, and I want you to describe to each other your last sexual experience with your spouse. I'm thinking, what? They want me to do that? So I'm thinking, she goes first. She says, oh man, we haven't had sex for 40 years. Oh good, now I've got to tell mine. So I'm still unhappy with what happened next. I told her about our last sexual experience. Now this lady wanted us to do that so we would feel the uncomfortability. But I learned something else from that. I wasn't scarred by it. But years later, 20 years later, I still resent that I followed her instruction and told somebody else of something intimate and special with my wife. Now I was an adult when I said that, when I shared that. I was being obedient and following the direction. But you know what? Today, it helps me relate to the kids that can be scarred when they go through intimate details of their sexual experience with a power figure sitting on the other end of the desk. That represents God. So that little experience, my kind of still resentment that why did I follow the instructions? Because when I talked to other bishops in the room afterwards, it was something, oh no, I didn't tell you. Really, I was the only one in the room that followed instructions and told about my sex life? Anyway, so I was glad to have the 800 number, and I know a little bit about the training that a bishop got for sexual stuff. Okay, somebody else? Doesn't somebody want to at least express we love you?
Absolutely.
Well, okay, who would like to express that?
That we love all the children, we love all these people, we love...
What about Elder Suarez?
I'd like to love him. I don't know him.
Okay, so you would like to love him.
Yeah, he's not here, is he? And that kind of makes me a little upset.
So, what did you say?
I absolutely love him because I hope he has the best intentions.
So we got to get a microphone. So Lori said, there we have an expression of a love for an apostle. Okay? I love the apostles.
I know they're trying to do what's best. They're trying.
Okay, so Elder Suarez, hear that. You got somebody here, right here, saying, I know you're trying to do what's best. However,
I
thank
know
you
it's
very much.
hecka hard. Super hard to be in the spot that he's got to be in.
I disagree. I think he's a coward. I think the apostles that don't come forward and talk about the sexual abuse that's going on in our church and about having one-on-one interviews behind closed doors with our youth, talking about masturbation, talking about other very inappropriate sexual things, for them to not come here and address all of you and all of us, they're cowards. That's what I think.
Okay, so we've got two differences of opinion, two different points of view on that.
That's
one.
okay. I'm okay with that.
You know what? I'm totally on board with McKenna too. But I know that his position, there's so many layers here that from where a true believing Mormon is to where McKenna is, there's so many layers that I don't know. As somebody who has been in an abusive situation, that you feel like you have to go through to even get on that base level of understanding, to even get to someone that understands that it's not a victim's fault, to even, why am I even in this chair? If we can even get to where we can understand, instead of confess, to counsel. If we could just change that one word, how much that could change everything. Instead of confessing something to a leader, to just counsel with a leader. Just that one change could change the world. Just that one. Just that one could
Yes,
change
but
through so many layers.
I agree, and I wish that it was different. But why do we have to have a hunger strike? Why do we have to commit to 21 days of no food, just water, to get the attention of the apostles? Why do we have to have a seat? Is this the great grand seat? Why do we have to have an unoccupied seat in order to get the attention of the church, to just make this one policy change? No more one-on-one interviews behind closed doors. No more sexually explicit questions asked to our youth. Why do we have to do this? Why do we have to have a hunger strike? Why do we have to stand across from the temple just to get their attention? Because they won't talk to us. They won't talk to you. They won't answer your questions. Why do we have to go this far to do that? I think it's shameful of the church to not send their apostles out here and explain to all of us why those practices are still allowed.
So, thank you very much, McKenna. I want to ask this. Does anybody not know who McKenna is? So everybody knows who McKenna is. So McKenna, her feelings, I didn't go through McKenna, what McKenna did. I can't even imagine being raped in the mission home as a missionary. I cannot imagine that. In the mission training.
Yeah.
Well, in the mission training center, wherever. Look, I never
Wherever
get
that
myself
was.
exactly right.
No.
But to be raped, I mean, this is so horrid. These kind of things that go on when our children can be groomed.
Yes.
I'm going to tell you something about McKenna. She might not want me to reveal.
Uh-oh.
Go ahead. I'm ready.
So I asked her, did you have interviews with when you were a youth where they were inappropriate, where you were asked sexual, where you had inappropriate interviews? And she said, when I was interviewed for baptism, the ward mission leader asked me some highly inappropriate questions. And I won't share those.
Go ahead.
No, I just remember they're inappropriate. I don't
Oh,
remember all the details.
I'll share the
No.
detail.
No.
Later.
Yeah, later.
With
Okay,
Spencer.
because that's not the point here. But then she told me, and so I said, well, what about the bishop's interviews? Oh, no, they were all fine. And she went on talking about something else and said, now, okay, so you were really never asked by a bishop about masturbation? She said, oh, yeah. I was asked about masturbation, but I didn't know that was inappropriate. She was still groomed after how many years, 30 years? How long was this? She was still groomed that it's okay to go behind a closed door and be asked about masturbation because she was groomed while she was a youth to accept that. And sure enough, when she got to the mission with it, the mission training, the MTC, there was a sexual predator there. He knew how to spot, identify, and then groom adults because they had already been groomed to go behind a closed door and talk about totally inappropriate stuff. So it was another one of those instructive things to me that, geez, we've got people, we as a church are there are a lot of us that are still groomed to be, yeah, I'm 40 years old and asking about masturbation, that's perfectly fine. No. Once you've talked about it for a while and talked to anybody out of the church, you know that, oh, geez, that is wrong. But we have a groomed population in the church that thinks masturbation is okay to talk about, all alone behind the closed door.
And the thing of it is, Sam, this is a solvable problem. This is 2018. All of this stuff right here, it's solvable. We have counselors, we have research, we have all of these things that is solvable. The church has resources, lots of resources that they could pour into. It could be a church calling, for heaven's sakes. That I mean, I'm sure they could figure out a way to make this work. We have the resources. We're not in the Middle Ages.
But that speaks again to why they're not here.
But true. Further light and knowledge comes from every source. We are all intelligent human beings.
Well, some people think I'm not.
Hey, easy there.
Thank you very much, Lori. That is perfect.
We're here. It's time. Past time.
I knew you had a comment or question or I love the apostle. Pardon? You want to come in here closer so we can hear it?
Sure. I think for a while first, sorry. I was just going to say that I love what you're doing, but I think the problem's bigger than just what questions we're asking behind closed doors. I think whenever you have obedience as the defining principle of Mormonism, and just for full transparency, I left last year. I couldn't handle it anymore. I just couldn't. It made me too angry. Too many issues that I could not stand behind, and I really appreciate that you're trying to affect change, staying in the church. I have family there that I care about. I have nieces and nephews that this affects. This is why I'm here. But my kids I needed them out now. My son turns 12 next year. I needed them out now. But as long as obedience is the crowning principle of the Mormon church, and you're not allowed to be your own authority, and you're not allowed to listen to your own gut, and your own personal revelation isn't what guides you, and you are told to bow to an authority figure, whether it is your bishop or your father or your MTC president or the prophet, without thinking for yourself, we're still sexually grooming our children to be molested. Because if an authority figure says do this, you do it.
True.
So thank you for what you're doing, and I hope we can make more progress than just with what happens within the bishop's rooms. I hope that we're able to make progress within the whole church. So.
Thank you. Very
We love you. We're loved.
Very important thing to be said. I just want to comment a little bit on this, since you said you've left the church. Well, I'm still in the church, which you know. I still love the church. My kids are in the church. I have a lot of friends in the church. Not as many as I used to, but I still have friends in the church. Yeah.
Oh,
okay.
yeah.
So there are probably a lot of people that have left the church here. Let me just say, I want to validate the path you chose. You chose a path that was best for you and your children. You took a courageous stand to do that. I just want to validate that and congratulate you.
Absolutely.
On doing something hard to benefit the kids.
It is not the easy way, like they say it is. It is the hardest way.
So,
Yours is the hardest way too, because I couldn't.
well, let me just tell you, to walk away from the kids, for me, would be the hardest way.
That deserves its own round of applause.
Okay, could you be the monitor here?
Yes, I'm sorry.
I'm glad we're getting...
McKenna moderator right here.
And what's your name?
Graham. I left the church last year, and we briefly messaged on the ex-Mormon Reddit. I think what you're doing is incredible and super important. And the more that you've talked about this, it seems like there's a disconnect between the services that are being provided by the church and the bishopric training. But as I've read more about church history and trying to understand something that I was brought up in, it seems that polygamy and the early days where men were superior and always have been superior to women in the church, that men are in control, and that what it is the men are there to have the women and to have them be in the specific ways that they want, with going all the way back to Joseph Smith and Fanny Alger. It seems like it is just something that has never been addressed, and that this is not just a new problem, but it's been something that's been going on since the church was even formed. And so my question, since you've been a bishop before, it doesn't seem like this is anything new, and maybe these questions were implemented at a certain point, but this whole issue is a systemic problem from the very foundation and forming of the LDS faith. And I don't want to get into anything about trying to tear down the church, because it is important to protect these kids. I work in education, and I am 100% here for protecting youth. But it just seems that this church is fundamentally built on sexual exploitation and men controlling women in a way that does not allow people to think for themselves, and like you were saying, obedience, that people, if you're not with it, then you're on the outside and you're pushed away. I think what you're doing is awesome, but I personally don't understand how the apostles are going to change anything when all of this is just a systemic problem. They can make changes and they can move forward and progress with times, but it just seems so deep rooted in everything.
So, Graham, right?
Yes.
I really appreciate your comments. I want to I guess I'm going to give up saying what Elder Suarez would say, because I have no idea.
I don't think that, if I were you, I don't think I would try and speak for Apostle.
Here's what I want to say.
Yes, sir.
Systemic, goes back a long time. I don't know when these questions started, but I want to share with you something that Brigham Young said about confession. He said, talking about children, if you sin against somebody, if you hit somebody, you go to them and apologize, and then apologize to God.
Yeah.
If you steal a cow, go to your neighbor and repent with your neighbor, and then pray to God and ask for forgiveness. Confess to two places. One is the person that you harmed or affected, and the other is God. And if you sin against God, and that's it, you should confess to God. And then he finished up and said, don't tell me your sins. I don't want to hear your sins. I'm looking at, hallelujah. That was right at the beginning of the restoration. I don't know where it moved from that to, Graham, tell me the last time you masturbated. Christina, tell me how many fingers you used. Oh, crap. Yeah, how did we get to that? When Brigham Young is saying, don't tell me this stuff. Repent to God. He's powerful.
Can I respond to you for just a second on that?
No,
I think
no,
that,
no.
and
No,
I don't want to get into
Yes.
crazy church history, but at one point there was a revelation that not all revelations come of God. After Joseph sent Oliver Cowdery and Hiram to go sell the copyright of the Book of Mormon, after it was written, they sent them and they come back and they were not able to sell the copyright, and
They were good salesmen.
yeah, they just couldn't do it. And so Joseph said that not all revelations come of God, not everything that comes down, and that the church says, and Brigham Young, that's a great thing from him, but Brigham Young also at one point had the Adam God theory that's been disavowed. But just saying, what it comes down to is that not all things of the church have been professed to be of God, and at times there have been teachings and values within the church that have been acknowledged to be then coming from Satan, coming from a darker place, and not the true authority.
So this thing of, that's one of those things that really is kind of off topic of looking at the history and how it all worked. I want to focus in on those kids. They're the ones we want to protect.
Thank you.
If a revelation came about this or that, well, fine, we can debate that. But I don't know how we debate the harm that has come to our children. So thank you, Rand.
And you had a question as well?
He had one of my questions, but the other one was, you remember the little white book?
Yeah.
When did that start and when did that end? And why was it only aimed at boys? I'm only asking a rhetorical question. You might not
Well,
know.
when you say a little white book, I'm thinking
Marky
of
Peterson.
the missionary.
No, Marky Peterson wrote a book called Especially, or Only for Young Men or something like that.
Oh, yes, okay.
Or for young men only, that's what it was.
Well, revelation, not all revelation comes from God. That's now out of print. They never talk about it or hand it
I know,
out.
it was rhetorical.
Now, let me just say, hallelujah. I mean, I'd look and say, hey, thank you, church, for taking that off the bookshelves. Thank you for not giving it to the bishops anymore.
Thank you. So we have.
So thank you, Elder Suarez, for doing that.
Yeah, right. We have her, and then her, and then
I have some
You?
questions from the live stream.
great.
Oh, cool.
Awesome.
Okay, and then we'll take the live stream question.
So I'm here to support Sam because I was LDS and now I'm Episcopalian because I left. Well, first off, I went through the interview and had a really bad experience when I was 12. It took me decades to get over it. I was active, inactive, active, off and on throughout most of my life. When I came out as transgender, then the real persecution began. And not everybody is loved as a daughter and son of God the same way by fellow members and the brethren.
Yeah.
When I and as far as earlier about do you love your apostle, I just want to say hashtag not my apostle. Because I am Episcopalian and I'm here for the children actually through Sam. He's a great advocate. And hopefully he's even a bigger advocate for the future children.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Okay, and then we have Eve.
So I just want to comment on Eve's story.
Sorry.
So Eve submitted her story. It's in the book. I'm doggone, I got to bring the books over because we've reprinted them with more stories. So your story's in there. And the night that you sent your story over, I'm reading through your story. And I get to a point and something happened that I'd never seen in any other story. And tears just started streaming as I read your story. So I know you had amazing trauma, terrible trauma. And hopefully seeing people, all these good people, tens of thousands stand up and say what happened to you should never have happened. Is a help to some people.
Basically, mine was a weird reverse psychology thing. My bishop didn't groom me, he didn't touch me, he didn't abuse me that way, but he called me a liar and said all boys.
We don't need to go into it unless you want
Yeah.
to.
Right.
So thank you.
All boys do that thing.
Yeah.
And that taught me, well, okay. He taught me how to do the wrong thing. It took me decades to get over. That was the thing that took me decades to get over that.
That's abuse.
Self-abuse.
Yeah.
and
Thank
addiction.
you.
Okay, thanks.
And you have a question, right? What's your name?
My name is Mindy, and I was here earlier with my two little girls. And while like the interviews with bishops is, I've had not as bad of experiences my family has, and in my past I kind of wonder if there was better training for bishops. Yeah, if there's better training for bishops, if some of the stuff that happened to me would have been prevented. But for my little girls, I don't even want them to go to nursery because it's not, people aren't paid to watch my kids. They don't have, anyway, you hear stories of even nursery age or sunbeam age kids being abused, and I want to know if the leaders of the church are going to do anything to stop that too, because that's what my kids' age is at, and that's what scares me, and I don't really let them go by themselves. I can't.
So Mindy, good for you for protecting those kids. This is an important issue where most of the churches do all kinds of things to protect the kids. Now we have made some changes that are good. We now got windows. We now have 2 people in each place, so that's good. But none of them are trained, and none of them are background checked. And those are common things in other churches. But that is, hopefully that's going to be part of this tsunami of change that Elder Bednar is talking about. These are the important kind of changes we'd like. So thank you very much for your comment. Greg, where's Greg? Greg, okay, I want to make sure you come up and ask a question. Or make a statement. No, you're the guy I want to be.
I don't have any questions.
A statement, a comment. I mean, you had about as much trauma in the church as you can get. No. But see, he's the one I can court. This is my best friend.
Well, he has history on me, so.
This is blackmail, yes.
Yeah, it gets personal.
Well, Sam and I got to know each other in junior high school, which was about the time I really realized I was gay. Internally, of course, it was very, very deeply within me because I was very Mormon. And I knew that being gay meant that I was equivalent to a rapist or murderer because Spencer W. Kimball said so, Bruce R. McConkie said so. And so I grew up with all of this shame and this guilt and this fear, but it didn't make sense to me because that's not who I was. I wasn't a murderer. I didn't want to rape anybody. I didn't want to molest little kids. And so I didn't know how to reconcile it because it's true. Everybody that I loved and respected said it was true, so it had to be true. So if it's true, I'm the one that's broken. I'm the one that's wrong here. So, you know, it took me a long time to just kind of sort it out and realize that I'm okay. I'm an honorable person. I've got my faults. I've got my weaknesses. But I'm a decent human being who happened to be born gay. And so I'm kind of off topic here because mine was not directly related to an interview with the bishop or anything that Sam is working so diligently to do. But I think there is just a common denominator here that our society has evolved and is evolving. And there are just certain things that can be done. So why don't we do them just to make the world a better place for everybody so that we don't have to live with the shame and the guilt and the fear that so many people, especially in the LGBT community, have had to deal with. So that's my statement. Sorry I don't have any good questions.
No, you can make a statement, you can make a question, but I just want to share something about Greg that kind of still I carry a little bit of regret from. So we were great friends in junior high, high school, went to different colleges, and then I went to BYU. I don't know why he didn't go to BYU. He went to BYU. But at some point in time, a few years after school, after college, we lost contact. It was like Greg had disappeared. I couldn't find him. I finally managed to find him about 5 years ago. When did your dad?
That's probably 8 years ago.
About 8 years ago, I finally was able to reconnect with him, and at that point, I'd heard rumors that he was gay, and I wanted to, and that's when I started thinking that's why he's disappeared, because that's not a kosher thing in our Mormon community. And so we managed to reconnect and reconnect strongly at this point, but I kind of regret that I was not a safe place all those years for my good friend to share what he was going through. I don't ever want to make that mistake again. I want to be a safe place for anybody. Anybody who's harmed at Bishop's interviews, anybody who's harmed in any way, a gay person, a trans person, these are normal. These are people, not normal. They're what we, we're all normal people, and so I do not want to be in that position, and I learned that from that experience with you that I regretted all those years.
Well, Sam has always been a safe place for me. I mean, that we just drifted apart for no particular reason. It wasn't like I didn't feel like it would have been safe to come to you. So you've always been that person.
Oh, good. Maybe I'm regretting it.
You should. Okay. You have nothing to do with it.
Greg, thank you very much for sharing that.
Thank you for doing that.
I know you're picking people, right?
We have one more, and then we have some online questions, and then we'll
Oh,
come
that's
back.
right. Let me take one online question. We still got 25 minutes.
Steve Wagner asks, this is for Elder Suarez, does Jesus want kids to be abused? And if not, why isn't the policy changed?
Okay, I am going to speak for Elder Suarez on this question. The first half at least. First half is yes. Or, I mean, no. No, he doesn't want children to be abused. So, okay, so there's Elder Suarez's answer on that one. The second one, that would be a great question to ask Elder Suarez. That's the whole thing we're working towards, Steve.
Steve Wagner.
Steve Wagner, thanks for that question. Yes, that's the question I want to ask. But I don't get to meet with the leaders anymore. But I'm hoping they're coming here so you guys can ask.
The second question, not from the named person, is what do you see as the steps going from here and forward to help eradicate sexual abuse from all areas?
Recognize I don't have a lot of good training. I'm not as smart as my friend Greg. That's where I aspire to. I don't know how to answer that question. My focus is on, let's start on the easy, the low-hanging fruit. Let's get rid of that one to prevent the abuse there, and then let's address the other ones. And actually, there are a lot of groups today that over the last several months, there have been several support groups that are starting to speak out about this very issue. There's all kinds of abuse that's going on in the church. Okay. Do you want to come up here so we can hear you well?
My name's Amy Logan. I've been out of the church for quite a while, but I've kind of balanced the, I have many members of my family. I have a son on a mission, balancing the post-Mormon life with the Mormon life, which probably a lot of us here are balancing. And so I have a hot button topic on my Facebook feed today for this very issue. We were here this morning with you. And I'm finding that a lot of the members are saying, well, this never happened to me, so therefore this isn't a problem. Right. And it's really frustrating. And I'm sending them to your site. Read these stories. But because they're like, well, will you ever ask that? Were you? And then I'm getting a lot of, no, that never happened to me. And fortunately, I'm thankful that didn't happen to me either. But I've asked my boys, and yeah, they've been asked the masturbation question. So I think, I don't know what the best answer is to the members who just don't even see that this is a problem or that this is happening.
Okay, Elder Suarez. Elder Suarez. Well, Sam's answer to that would be to ask them, if this is happening, is it okay? Do you think it's okay? It never happened to you, so you don't think it's happening. Would it be okay if it happened? If it's not okay with with it happening, then let's make the change. Right. You had a great experience. Let's expand that to everybody else. Rather than, and I'm not sure I would use these words, but here's how I feel. Rather than be selfish and say, look, it was good for me, so we're not changing it for anybody else. Right. No. Right. Open your mind and look at, say, hey, it was good for me, man. We want to make it good for everybody else. Let's eliminate what is happening.
Yeah.
Thank you, Elder Suarez. Okay.
I'd actually like to ask the group here if anyone here has been personally victimized by bishop interviews. And you don't have to make a statement, but could anyone raise their hand possibly? So quite a few. Okay.
Usually when I ask a question in a group, how many of you were asked sexually explicit questions? It's between 50 and 75 that answer. So let's say that 50% may never have been asked those questions. That's a substantial group at our church. But 50% have, that's gigantic. 4 of my girls were asked sexually explicit questions. Okay, should we take...
Would anyone like to make a statement about what might have happened to them personally?
What?
When you asked a different question than the one she asked.
Yes, that's exactly right. Because some didn't harm the person.
Right.
It's our most vulnerable. It's our most vulnerable kids, our most tender kids, our most scrupulous, those that want to obey the most, that are really at the super end of the risk spectrum. Whoops. What do you call that?
No, it's okay. No, she can go first. I've already had my chance.
Okay.
Let her go.
What is your name?
My name's Carol.
Carol.
And I want to direct this to Elder Suarez. But I was one of those, super obedient that tried so hard to do everything right. You get these other, I shared my story. I mean, I've left the church, obviously.
You shared it on the...
Oh yeah, it's in there. But, and I've shared to people, after the fact. Of course, I never told anybody when it happened. And everyone else just goes, I mean, these are people that are outside of the Mormon faith, and they're like, I just would have walked out, or I wouldn't have answered those questions. But, and here's my question to Elder Soares. Okay, I was a 16-year-old girl, trying so hard to be good, and, you know, have a boyfriend, do a little minor petting, okay? I didn't have sex. I was 16. If people don't think that's happening in the church, it is.
Absolutely.
I know I have 5 children. I know what these kids are doing, whether they're confessing it or not. But, I mean, I really thought I was going to go to hell. And it took, and I grew up in a family where I couldn't talk to my parents. I didn't talk to anybody. I get all this courage to go speak to my bishop. Now this, as I get older and older and have grandkids, it gives me really a weird perspective on this, and a different perspective. But this man, who is actually very well known in Utah, my bishop I loved and respect, he was only in his 30s, okay? I have a son-in-law, 34, something, okay. I mean, I go in to confess my little confession. He asked me if I had an orgasm, okay? Elder Soares, how is that not inappropriate? Like, how is that not appropriate? I mean, how is that appropriate? He asked me that. Then he goes on, and I have to give every little detail, and I really think I'm going to go to hell. I really think, well, I am this far below a murderer. I mean, this was the 80s, people.
Yeah.
And maybe it's different now. But, no. I mean, I really did. And so I did. I did this with this. I touched this. He touched that. And that's so horrible. And it was so shaming. And, like, I get emotional talking about it, but I mean, I'm over it. I've kind of done all my stuff. It's like I'm over most of the anger with the church. But like today I was thinking, like, you know, like if you were the wife of that bishop who's in his 30s, and he's with a cute little 16-year-old girl asking, did he touch this? I mean, I'm sorry, Elder Soares, but this is happening. This was my experience, and there's tons of people it didn't happen. I know people that go in to confess. I know, no big deal. It's normal. Okay, but what happened to me has happened to so many people, and it is still happening today. What are you going to do? I do feel like you're a coward for not being here. I mean, I would love to have a face-to-face with my former bishop. I would love to have a face-to-face with, you know, any of these general authorities, and just tell me how that's okay. And I mean, I wasn't sexually molested. I get that, but it does affect you, and it affects, probably like one of you said, it's the ones that are trying the hardest to be so good. And so, I mean, that's just, can't you give us an answer? I mean, really, we're here, we're putting ourselves out here. It wasn't an easy thing for me to leave the church. I had to do what was best for me. I had to do what was best for my children. So for all of you who think it's easy, it is not. I didn't want this to not, I didn't expect this, you know, it's not what I planned.
Yeah, if I could get back, if no one else is willing to talk about it, I will talk about my experience.
So, let me respond.
But yeah, really quick.
So, Carol, I'm not Elder Soares.
You're what?
I'm not Elder Soares. But what I would say, what happened to you was dead wrong. The first time a story was said, maybe it was yours, I don't know, early on, where it said the bishop asked you if I orgasm. What the hell? What is that? How can you be asking? But the policy we have today does not forbid that. That is totally fair game for a bishop to ask. Nobody has said that that is improper. They need to say that's improper. So, Carol, I'm sorry what happened to you. It's wrong. We've got thousands of people today that are standing up to say that it was wrong. Hope that healing process. I don't know where you're in. You don't need to tell us about your healing process. I just know, okay, good. I'm glad to hear that. I've made a mistake before, not too long ago, when I made the comment, I'm glad you recovered from all that. Because she was looking, she's super successful, and she said, no. being able to succeed in the world is not the same, not equivalent to healing. So don't make that judgment anymore, no matter how good somebody looks. So thank you. I'm glad you feel. Thank you for sharing that. You've got the courage to say those words out in public.
Yes. Yes.
Does this make you uncomfortable? I shouldn't be ashamed. My bishop should be ashamed. He should be ashamed he asked me that. And I
Yes.
know why he asked me that. Inspiration, weird inspiration. Is that
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Really?
That was not inspiration. It never should have been asked. We're going to
But can I say something too? Your courage in saying that allows other people who have not been able to share that. They haven't started healing because they haven't shared it. But once you share whatever it is, you start to heal. You can't help but start to heal. So thank you for that.
Okay, so
yeah.
Oh,
Would you like to go?
We were on you.
Yeah.
Let's
would
just
you
check
like to?
and see how much time we got. So we got 13 minutes to go before the apostle leaves.
All right, Elder Suarez, I won't keep it too long. So, I have another statement. I don't have a lot of questions anymore, but I have statements. So my statement is that I think all of us have been harmed by the sexual nature of the church, the questions that are being asked behind closed doors. Because whether you were asked by your bishop or not, specific and even more specific questions, whether you were abused, whether you had to confess things that no one should have to confess and felt that shame, or whether you just kind of secretly did not do anything and kept yourself. I was this perfect little Molly Mormon, but I went into marriage absolutely sexually stunted because of questions that were asked of me in interviews. And even though I was able to say an affirmative, no, I've never masturbated, or no, I haven't done any of those things, I haven't done X, Y, and Z, and I felt completely clean going into marriage, I could not go there because of the training to keep my thoughts pure, to never ever allow myself to go in that space. My husband's a marriage and family therapist, and over and over and over again he sees couple after couple after couple who cannot make this work. And there's pornography addiction because these are basic human needs. And when you feel shame about these things, it manifests itself in all of these weird, perverted ways. And I'm not saying pornography is perverted. I'm just saying, I think that that's normal and okay. So if you're there, you're good. No shame. Okay. All right. So, but what I am saying
By
is
the way,
that
I'm not going to pass that one to Ella. That's why.
I made him blush over there. Look at him. But what I am saying is we've all been affected. All of us have been affected. I think all of us carry shame in one way or another, and it's affected us all sexually in one way or another somehow. Yep. So.
Okay,
Absolutely.
well, thank you for that statement.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we're definitely not working on that issue.
That's another day.
Okay, let me go to you. You haven't said anything.
All right. Cool. My name is Josh.
Can you come
Hi,
up here?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Wherever you like. Looking at the history of the church and its present, I just want to know why the church is so slow to change harmful policies.
What an amazingly good question that is. There's a lot of times we can look and say, how come we were 14 years behind the civil rights movement? How come it took us so long to get rid of polygamy? And here's an issue of why is it taking us so long when all of society has totally moved beyond this thing. When you tell somebody what we're doing in our church, everybody is stunned. Why do we go? I don't know, was it 14 years ago when the scouts said, okay, scoutmasters, no leaders ever in the same room alone. And you better not ask about sex, buddy. So, I mean, they forbid specifically both those things. That is a question I wish Elder Suarez was here to answer. So that's a good question. Thank you. Now, what is your name again?
Josh.
Josh. Okay, thank you, Josh. Okay.
One simple question.
Graham?
Yeah, sure. You say that every time, Grant.
This is a simple one. So where I'm from, there have been reports of conversion camps that are then based in the LDS faith. So my question would be, what is the church doing to end conversion camps that may not be directly a part of the LDS church, but they're using the LDS church to create the conversion?
Can I answer that?
I've never heard.
That is.
So Graham,
Yeah,
I've
Utah
never heard
Boys
of a
Ranch.
conversion camp.
It's a really, really great topic, but it's a little bit off topic for what we're doing. I would love to talk to you later about
There you
that.
go. Elder Suarez, Sister Suarez is right here.
Right here.
Yes.
Where does the responsibility between the bishop and the church end? What you do as a bishop,
That's a great
where does that responsibility, because what we hear is that, oh, well, the church isn't responsible for what a bishop did when he disobeyed the rule. So he's a lay ministry, so he's not paid. So is that why? Because he's not paid?
I think that the church, if the church says that, they're not on very solid
Well, it
ground.
wasn't someone in the church, it was just somebody that we know. But I just...
Yeah, I think the
there has to
church
be a
has gotten a
line of
lot of trouble.
responsibility.
Yeah, I think the church has gotten a lot of trouble because a bishop did something wrong, did sexually abused, rape, did
So there
something
is a
like that.
responsibility line.
Well,
What's
I'm
the
not a
legal
lawyer,
line?
but lawyers would say absolutely. and the church has settled a ton of court cases out of court for that very issue.
But the church's attorneys would disagree with that. My attorney would totally be all over that.
Craig Vernon.
But the church's attorney would say, well, there's this level of separation. We have a bishop, we have a stake president, but we're way up here, so that doesn't really have anything to do with us.
So there's Sister Suarez
So
gave
you
you
say,
the
yeah.
Okay, Joanna, we've got 7 minutes.
I can make it fast.
Do we have children present?
Yes. I underwent abuse that I won't get into from a neighbor in his temple garments. I went to my bishop because that's what we're taught, that you don't go to police, you don't go to any other authority, you go to your bishop. I mean, the very next week, that's where I went. And when I told him what had happened to me, it was immediately, well, what did you do to entice him? What did you do to make it happen?
What were you wearing?
Yeah, what were you doing to make this is there something wrong with you? And then it was, well, you need to repent and you need to go through this process. But my bishop didn't even tell my parents, did not report it to authorities. My parents had no clue for about 10 years, which I think is also, especially when we're talking about having parents possibly in these interviews, that's a hugely important matter, because especially if abuse is going on with a child, a parent deserves to know. And so a lot of these questions, the shame culture and what we're taught as children makes us go to these bishops first. They're the first line of defense. And when you talk about training, that's, I feel, very, very important. But yeah, people say that, yeah, this doesn't happen. It's because people don't talk about it, and a lot of these people don't report anything anywhere else. It stays in that room.
Yeah, that's a big problem. You know, I've read so many stories and know the commonality of a lot of things. Kids that are abused, we handle that so horridly. And over you see that the bishop blames the girl. No mention about the guy, but there's
Right.
all kind of blame to the girl. That is wrong. If there is abuse, period.
Yeah, nothing
no matter
happened to
what.
him.
Yeah.
He was a priesthood holder in the church and ended up being in the bishopric. He was a counselor.
Yeah.
Later, after I reported.
Yeah, that's a huge problem.
Yeah.
That this will help address.
Yeah, and that's the problem about my story. It's not unique. This is so widespread.
I've heard a few unique stories, but there's not many of them anymore. Almost everyone has some new twist, but they've got all these common
Right.
elements. We need to not write any more stories.
Is there a reason why these are mandatory interviews in the first place?
Well, according to the church, they want to assess worthiness for the temple, for advancement, especially in the priesthood, and advancement in the young women's. Now, but what the doctrine is behind that, I don't know what the doctrine is behind that. I want to go back to Brigham Young. He said, don't tell us anything, go to God.
So, as a former bishop, you weren't privy to that. I mean, you weren't said, this is why we do this?
You know what, maybe I was a super scary bishop, because I only had one kid that ever confessed to me. But I'm not quizzing them. You would, in order to go to the temple, you would go through the interview questions. I think chastity was in there.
Yeah.
But maybe all the kids lied to me. I was good with that. I whatever they told me, I'm fine. But I did have one girl that got pregnant. So she came from a home, single mother home. The mother had some challenges and so it was not a really good home atmosphere. So I was happy that she was in our ward, and then she got pregnant. And when I found that out, I called her in. But there's no way I was going to ask her about details. I didn't even think to ask her about details of getting pregnant, who the boy was. It was this girl in a vulnerable home is about to give birth to a precious child. We need to wrap our arms around her and make her feel comfortable, make her feel loved. Look how we can bolster her up. So that just wasn't, somehow I didn't have that culture. Growing up, I didn't have any of that. It was just, hey, the bishop's a great guy. Every once in a while you had an interview. They were great interviews. So,
would you say that's the mentality of most bishops, is that they look at it like that?
I don't know.
Would that change? Would that change things if
you got sex out of it?
If bishops were to look at interviews as more of a, hey, instead of, what are you doing wrong, kind of mentality. So instead of looking at it like, what are you doing wrong, instead of, hey, how are you doing? How's school? Can we help you with anything? Are we good? See
yes,
ya.
Lori.
Bye.
So now, did you say you're interested in becoming a bishop?
I would love to be a bishop, but gender.
Ordain women.
Okay.
Hashtag
so,
ordain.
So, Tad read this statement from the church about the uplifting youth. All that stuff is great. It's exactly what you're talking about. That's what we want. But we've got to get the sex out of it. We've got to get the one-on-one danger out of it.
But there's no policy. There's no doctrine. That's what I'm getting at. There's
I don't know of a doctrine.
Tell me what the inherency is. There's nothing structural there. There's no doctrine. There's no scripture that's stopping us.
If a bishop is going to
I don't think so.
like this, right?
So not that I know of. Elder Suarez would be able to enlighten us. Okay, we are 7:59, so we've gone an hour. Geez, thanks everybody for coming tonight. Appreciate it very much. I am expecting that I'm not the only guy participating in Hunger Strike and Spotlight. I'm counting on everybody here and around the world to put this spotlight on what we are doing to our kids day in, day out for 31 days, Mom, for 21 days or however long it goes. Hopefully it'll go shorter than that. This will be a historic thing that we're doing right here. Even if it doesn't result in change from the church, it's the first time this has happened in our church. People are standing up like intelligent thinking human beings concerned about our fellow citizens and concerned about our children. We do this for 3 weeks. You'll remember this the rest of your life, that you were a big participant in changing something that is so desperately needs to change. So thank you very much for coming tonight, and we'll do another live broadcast with Elder Gong tomorrow night, our first Chinese American. Okay, that's what I've got.
Go Sam.
I would tell you that my brother